Good morning. It's Katie Lebeds from Learning to Lean. I wanted to talk to you this morning about a project management and project topic called a risk register. So, as you can see on my screen, I have a copy of the risk register that I typically use. So, what's a risk register? First of all, let's talk about risk. Risk is anything that can or will go wrong, right? Sometimes we know that as Murphy's Law, something that can or will go wrong on your project. And we work to, first of all, identify risk, mitigate risk, and make sure that we also have it documented. So it's important on a project that we talk about any risks, positive or negative, that are associated with your project. It's not always negative, but for the most part, that is what we think about. So for every project, I have a risk register. So that's what I have displayed here. And again, risk is anything that can or will go wrong within reason. So what's a risk to a project? A risk to a project could be a situation where maybe you had a change in the person that you're talking with as your consultant on a new software. And you know that when they change folks at that company, that it's going to take some time to get the next person up to speed on the project that you're working on. So that would definitely be a risk that I would include there. If I was building a house, especially in the state of Wisconsin, a risk that I would put in there, depending on the time of the year that I was building the house, would definitely be the weather, right? We are in February of 2026, and the weather here in Wisconsin the past few weeks has been bitterly cold, like negative 45 degrees outside for wind chill. So that would be something that I would put on the risk register if I was building a house in the state of Wisconsin in the middle of the winter. Maybe I am working on a manufacturing project. And the risk in a manufacturing project, let's say you're putting in a new machine into your building, the risk that you could have associated in there is associated with the other processes that will feed into that machine and the outcome of that machine into other processes. So that would be a risk that I would put in there, is that something in regards to the process inputs and the process outputs. If I was in healthcare, what would a risk that I would put on my risk register for a project? Something I would put on my risk register for a project in healthcare really depends on the nature of the project. It could definitely be associated with people. It could be associated with systems. It could be associated with timelines. It could be associated with finances too. So we all know that in certain companies, certain times of the year, we are approaching the end of our fiscal year, and having the funds available could definitely be a risk. So on our risk register, we have the information, the project title at the top, and the project manager. We have the risk description, which is a brief summary of the risk. And then next we have the impact description. So if this risk were to come to fruition, what is the impact to our project? So don't forget the triple constraint. So how does our project or this risk impact our quality of the project, our cost of the project, our scope of the project, and of course the timing of the project? Now, the impact level, I like to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. So impact level 1 is low, which it doesn't have a significant impact to our project, or 5 is high, it really does have a significant impact to the project. Probability level is a rating of 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is high. How likely is it for this risk to come to fruition? So how likely is this to occur? So 1 is low and 5 is high. Now, sometimes people look at it and say, why should we even document it if my impact and probability is low? We want it there for awareness, right? And let's face it, sometimes when we are taking a guess or an estimate in regards to the impact and probability, we might not be accurate. So we want to make sure that it's on the risk register anyways. Now, imagine some projects you could have hundreds of risks. Now, I will tell you, most projects don't, but it depends on the type of project that you're working on. Maybe you're working on rolling out a new system, a new ERP system for your organization. That's going to have a significant amount of risks associated with it. So you have to figure out, what risks am I going to prioritize first? So you take your impact level times your probability, and that gives you your priority level. And once you determine your priorities, you have to list your mitigation notes. So that means, what are we going to do if that risk comes to fruition? How are we going to mitigate it, right? Is there any way to cut it off at the pass, right? Is there any way for us to prevent it from happening to begin with? In life, as we know, there are many things that we can't control. So we at least have to be able to write down what we're going to do to try to mitigate it. And then, of course, the owner. So the owner is the person responsible for the mitigation work on the risks. I use this every project that I work on, right? There is always a risk register. Sometimes there's one thing on the risk register, and sometimes there's 100 things on the risk register. But this is something that I use for every project. This is something that I go over with the project team. And again, this is not about focusing on the negative. This is focusing on the possibilities and making sure that we are prepared to be able to handle those possibilities. If you have any questions in regards to a risk register, or if you'd like more information on project management, Lean or Six Sigma, contact us today. And below, I'm putting the link to a free copy of the risk register on my website. Thanks and have a great day.